What? What's that, Lassie? What is it, girl? Timmy fell down the well? Oh, is the town orphanage on fire? Huh. So you're saying that episode 12's guest for the performers I know is Tabitha Jablonski? Oh, thank you, Lassie. That was very helpful of you. Come on, we'll go watch the episode together. Episode 12 of the performers I know coming at you! These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another fantastic episode of The Performers I Know. This is episode number 12. Oh, yes. We are almost at the end of the first season. I'm very sad about that, but also I've enjoyed myself. I've enjoyed interviewing the 11 previous people who have been on, and I'm especially excited to be interviewing person number 12, a very talented individual. She's a singer, she's an actress, she's a director, and she's here right now in studio, coming to you live, Miss Tabitha Jablonski. Tabitha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Now, once upon a time, back in 2020, the first reading that I did with Frank and Juby Radisi's virtual group, which it was it's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, where I got to play Snoopy. I had no I had no dialogue. But you know what? That's okay, because I really wasn't feeling like talking that day anyway. And Tabitha happened to play Sally, and she was quite amazing in it. She really knew the ways of the Sally, the ways of the annoying younger sister, and her sweet Babu, Linus. I can't remember who played Linus offhand. Um, but yeah. So Tabitha, my first question to you, as I ask of all my guests, what got you bitten by the theater bug? What got you interested in acting in general?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think I fell in love with movie musicals before I fell in love with like theater and acting per se. I think it was just my dad when I was 5. He bought me Meet Me in St. Louis, the movie musical with Judy Garland. And it's not a usual movie to give a 5-year-old, but one of his coworkers suggested it because her father had recently passed away, and she was talking to my dad about how the best gift her dad gave her was a love of the arts. So I think that was my dad's inspiration, which is weird because he wasn't a theater person growing up, but I think he just was like, oh, well, let's just try it. So he gave 5-year-old me Meet Me in St. Louis, and I completely fell in love. And I think I did theater before I knew what theater was because I was doing theater in my living room because I just started dancing along and singing along to the musicals I was watching. And I got really into those MGM musicals like Singing in the Rain, things like that. So I think before I even knew what Broadway was or what performing on a stage or the fact that people could do that in real life, I think it was just a natural thing to just dance and sing in my living room. And then growing up, I realized that was actually something that I could do outside my living room. So that was really exciting. But when
And
I think of what got me bitten by the theater bug, I just think of the VHS of Meet Me in St. Louis.
you know, there somewhere in the archives of the Forgione household, there is videos of younger me doing the exact same thing, singing
Mm.
and dancing to various things. In particular, a song by the Cars called "The Good Times Roll." Uh, not something I'm very proud of because I was, mincing the words, but still, it's the almost the exact same kind of start that you had. Just a love of
Well, that's good.
singing.
I thought I was the only one because whenever I told my friends, they told me I was weird. So I'm glad you did it too.
Just Tabitha telling her story, and people, ma'am, this is a Home Depot. Either get something or
Hmm.
no. Wait. Even your theater friend said that.
Like I think I just grew up thinking that's how you watch movies. And like I remember like watching with my best friend Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan and me being like, okay, so I'll be the British one and you be the one from California. And she's like, what are you talking about? We're just watching the movie. And I was like, that's so boring though.
Well, wait till Tabitha got to Rocky Horror Picture Shows. We,
Ah.
we we get to sing along. Oh, I'm within my tribe now.
Hmm.
So yes. So you parlayed the virtual theater readings into your own group called "There's No Place Like Home." What were you inspired by anything in particular to start it, or you just was it just a way to get talented friends
Yeah.
together?
So I was inspired by a local theater group that was, that moment in the pandemic where we thought we would be back to real life soon. So it was like late March and everybody was like, "Oh, maybe in just a few weeks we can do shows," because we were all delusional. But a theater group was like, "Okay, we're gonna host virtual auditions for our production of Footloose." And I don't think I would have auditioned in real life because I was just so busy. But now that I wasn't busy, obviously, I was like, oh, let's just do this virtual audition because I'm missing theater. And they shared their screen to like do cold reads, and I was reading scenes from Footloose with the other people that were auditioning. And it was this whole big, like, it was Zoom audition. And obviously the show never happened, but it was like a full-on real community theater doing their real audition this way because they thought they'd be able to do their show soon. And I was having the best time. I think it's the most fun I've ever had at an audition just because I had missed it so much and I was just having so much fun performing, like, and even if it was just for a computer. So after the audition was over, I kind of got like this, that was so much fun. Like I want to do that again. And I was looking for more community theater groups that were doing Zoom auditions, and I really couldn't find any. And obviously it didn't really matter because we weren't going to be able to do these shows anyway. So, and then later my husband's a poet and he was having like a poetry reading with a bunch of his poet friends, and they were just having the best time on Zoom. And then I was kind of jealous of him. So he was like, why don't you do something similar with your theater people? So I put those two things together and I was like, okay, well, I had so much fun simply reading from a script on Zoom. So let's just see if any of my friends would be willing to like read shows with me. And at first, I thought it would just be like me and six people, honestly. So I just put like a status on my Facebook saying, hey, I'm thinking of starting this. If anyone wants to join, let me know. And I got all these likes and all these comments from my Facebook friends. So I'm like, oh, this is more than I expected. Let me actually make a full-on Facebook group so that I think it's too much for me to have like an email list or something or a Facebook message. So I made a full-on group. And then one of my friends from high school who joined messages me, hey, is it okay if I invite some of my friends? And I was like, oh, I guess so, sure. And then all of a sudden, like after like day three, I think we were already in the three-digit mark. And I didn't expect, it was a complete accident. And at this point, it has like 1,000 members. Obviously, we don't
I
do
was gonna say, as of now, there's 1,075 people, so I think you
real.
underestimated it by far.
Yeah. So it got way bigger than anything I ever imagined, but I guess that just shows the power of theater nerds and how we cannot be stopped and how we get that performance itch. And at that point, just being able to act out, even if it was on Zoom, was a saving grace for a lot of us. And then I was able to, so I started my group first, and then I accidentally stumbled into, I think one of my friends from home told me that his friend was doing something similar, and that's how I found the group that you were in. And it was just super fun. And it was funny because I originally started my group because I wanted to perform. But then so many people joined, I felt bad casting myself. So I didn't cast myself. I cast other people. But I was like, okay, this is fun, but I want to find a group that's not mine so I can actually perform without feeling guilty. Because I am never the type of person that likes to cast themselves in anything. So it was nice to find other groups like yours and the one that we met through, just because it was like, okay, these are people I don't know as well. I can just, other people can tell me what to read, and I don't have to feel guilty about casting myself as a part that I want if other people want it.
I feel the same way. I hate casting myself in roles unless it's like super necessary. As in,
Yeah.
like, there's absolutely nobody who is doing this role. All right, I guess I'll do it then.
Hmm.
So yeah, I get exactly where you're coming from there. Probably, I would say one of my favorites, because I've done a couple of Tabitha's readings. I did Psycho, I did Cat in the Hat, did a
Hmm.
couple of the Friends episodes were a lot of fun. But I would say my favorite was probably Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Hmm.
because I got to play Eddie Valiant for the second time, or was it the third time? I don't even know. I've played the role three times now, so it's
No, it's just
sometimes
so
it's
perfect.
just yeah, I guess so. Everybody seems to really enjoy myself. Um, but eventually it got to the point where looked at some of my projects and went, I would love to have Tabitha be in one of my shows. And gosh darn it, that's exactly what I did when I had Benny to the Rescue, which, as I said to other people before, was my love letter to Disney movies of the past, especially like the golden era of it. And yes, Tabitha played the mother of a character called Tabitha. It's serendipitous of that. And because Tabitha just is very good at those kind of like motherly, like matronly kind of kind characters. And I think the one thing that I remember, Tabitha, is when you sent me your recording, and it was a lot of you just scrolling through the script. Like, I can't. This is an audio program, so I can't really show you what I'm doing right now. But you were just like, mm, like she's
It would
really
be like
searching.
in character, out of character scroll, in character.
Yeah, you had that like intense look on your face, like, where's that next line?
And I remember thinking that as it was happening, being like, this is gonna look so stupid, but but this is what I have.
It actually worked. Everybody was kind of recorded separately, which I've done many times before. I've kind of like got like a kind of patchwork monster, Frankenstein creature thing into a complete show, and it worked out. Uh, just absolutely wonderful. I interviewed Owen, who he played Benny. I interviewed him back in episode 6, and he remembered fondly the same way. Um, yeah, I mean, it was it was very it was a very interesting experience. Have you ever dealt with recording yourself separately from people
No,
in
I
that
think
kind of a
that
situation?
was other than like Smule, like the app where you sing separately. That's the only other time, but I've never done it with reading before, so that was very interesting.
Would you try that again, or would you rather prefer like I want the full people in here? No, no siree.
I mean, if you ask me what I prefer, I guess it depends on what the final project is. Like for you, that's what you needed because it was for like it worked for you because that's what you were doing. It was more audio. But as far
Hmm.
as like what I prefer, as far as what I have more fun like playing with other people, obviously. But
Right.
I will say during the pandemic, doing your project and even the Beauty and the Beast one. And then there was another guy that I met through my group that does like YouTube animated fairy tales, and I voiced Gretel from Hansel and Gretel for him. I enjoyed stuff like that more than I thought I would, just because like I don't know, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear it afterwards because I think everyone hates the sound of their own voice. So like it always intimidates me to just hear my voice, but I think I like it better when I'm playing a character. Like it's just interesting. Like especially with Hansel and Gretel, like I got to see an actual animation of like a little girl and hear my voice, which was really interesting. So yeah, it's pretty
I
cool.
I love the sound of my own voice.
Well, you
Can't
have
get
a
it.
very nice radio voice.
I've often said I have a face for radio, so I guess that's why I like to hear the sound of my own voice, and the fact that I can be very long-winded is a testament to that. But actually, it's funny that you mentioned the Beauty and the Beast project because the that was the other main thing that we did. So as a little backstory, as I had not brought this up before, I had this. LeFou is one of my favorite characters in all of Disney movies. I think he's one of the funniest sidekicks. He has one of the best Disney songs, villain adjacent songs. And I've always been a fan of like what if kind of tales. Like, oh, what if LeFou, you know, wasn't so influenced by Gaston? And I wrote this short piece, and it's like, all right, I need a certain somebody to play off of that embodies that kind of Disney-esque spirit. And Tabitha was the first person that came to mind. I'm like, she, it's got to be her because she gets it. I really feel that you get those kind of Disney vibes. Has anybody ever told you that before?
No, but it's also because I don't know. I'm too short to play them in actual Disney, so I think I always like let that get in my way. I actually looked up the height requirements for Disney characters. And I
There's height
can
requirements.
yes, I can only be Alice, Wendy, or Tinkerbell. Those are the only ones for short girls.
Huh. I mean, to me, it really shouldn't matter what the height is as long as you have the personality. But then again, I don't work for Disney, so I
Not
don't
that
know.
those aren't amazing characters. Those three would be amazing characters. But as far as like the main princesses, but I will say that out of all the princesses, I've always loved Belle. She's actually my favorite. And I know the character I played wasn't Belle, but you were like, it's very Belle adjacent.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, I
so
love
like
her a lot.
for those of you who don't remember, in the very first song in Beauty and the Beast, Marie, the baguettes, hurry up. Yeah, Tabitha was Marie, so she was the
The
quote
untold
unquote,
story of Marie.
yes, the quote unquote untold story. And I mean, yeah, have you ever, you know, given any kind of credence or thought to something like that, like a what if story for any kind of Disney character, not even just LeFou, but any type?
Oh my gosh, I had a really dark idea the other day. And it
Okay.
wasn't about just Disney characters, it was just about movies. Like I was like, I wonder if like I would want to like figure out which couples in movies would actually like work in real life because you know how like there's very little character development in a lot of like the romantic stories. Like take Snow White. I think she barely meets the prince and then like he wakes her up and they get married, right?
You
So
know,
like
I that is something that's always kind of bothered me. Is like, yeah, they meet each other for like 30 seconds, and then it's like, oh, you woke me up with a kiss. Let's get married.
So the other day I was thinking like, oh, it would be fun to just think about which of them are probably going to get divorced or like which of them would actually make it because they were like I was thinking which one was I thinking about? Like I feel like Anastasia and Dimitri. I know that's not Disney, but in the Anastasia cartoon, I feel like you get a lot of time with them. Like I like them a lot as a couple. So I was like, oh, I feel like? Like they got on their nerves a little bit, but they learned about each other. Like I feel like they're gonna make it. Whereas like other couples, I'm like, I don't think they know each other enough. So I was
You
just thinking
know,
about that. That's
it
like the only thing that like I was like, oh, I wonder like if we like made realistic sequels for these, if like they would actually still be together.
I feel like if there was a animated movie couple that would pass the test of time, it would be Anastasia and Dimitri. I often suspect that Snow White and Prince Florian, because that's his name, Prince Florian, would probably get divorced within like 6 months. They're sitting there with the seven dwarves just running about. It's like, I Snow, I didn't really sign up for this. Why?
Mhm.
I don't know.
And in a way, Into the Woods gives us a little bit of that with their with Into the Woods is Act Two. Like you get a little bit of like realism to some of this stuff. Um, I know a lot of people don't like thinking about. I know like in the Disney version of the movie version of Into the Woods, they took out some things. I think they didn't put the second agony in that one just because they didn't want to mess with kids like actual vision of Disney princes and princesses. But yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Some of these kids, it's like, come on, this is real life. Let's get a move on there. But yeah, like I feel like the only couple for like the in the Disney canon that seemed to really be on like solid ground was Aurora and Prince Philip, because it seems like they kind of because they knew each other from when they were kids, right? I
I don't know about that, but I know that like he met her before he knew she was a princess, so that's also like an added thing. Like it wasn't about who she was or anything. But
Yeah.
I see your Aurora, but I raise you, and I know this isn't a princess, but I raise you Hercules and Meg. I think they are good too. They're
Well,
together for a while.
they're the only ones who actually went on a date in the
Yeah.
course of the movie. It's like, hey, we might kind of sort of like each other. Let's test it out and go on a date, and then James Woods ruins everything. Stupid Hades. But yeah. But it's hard to really pin down all these different kind of readings that we did. The um the Friends reading that we did takes on a whole new meaning, because I know you had mentioned before that Friends is like one of your comfort shows.
hmm
So it's like, oh, Chandler, poor
I
Chandler.
know. Yeah, that made me very sad. And I actually just read his memoir earlier this year. And if anybody's a fan of him, I really recommend reading the memoir. And at first I was afraid that it would make me stop liking him. I don't know why. Like because I know you sometimes you put like celebrities on a pedestal or something, right? So like you don't really
Mhm.
always want to hear about like not so good things about their lives, especially if they're struggling. Like I was afraid that I wouldn't like him anymore or something. But it made me like him more. Like it made me see him as like an actual human. So while I still will always think of him as Chandler, obviously, I watch it and like I'll remember things that he wrote about in his memoirs about like what seasons were really difficult for him and what when he felt like he was at his best and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was just it's very I feel like I appreciate the character more now because I respect the man himself more and I feel like it was very sad when he passed away, especially because his memoir ended with a lot of hope for the future. It wasn't even though it was a sad story, it didn't have a sad ending. It had like a very hopeful ending. So yeah, that was a very I'm not the kind of person that gets super upset about celebrity deaths. The only other celebrity I got really upset about was Debbie Reynolds. And I don't remember I remember because Debbie Reynolds passed away like the day after her daughter Carrie Fisher passed away. And I
Mhm.
remember when I heard about Carrie Fisher, I remember thinking, Debbie Reynolds cannot handle this. She is so old. I mentioned before that Singing in the Rain is one of my favorite movies, and that's what Debbie Reynolds is in Singing in the Rain. And then the next day when I learned that she passed away too, it just hit me just because I was like I didn't realize that like it was the first time I predicted a celebrity death just because I'm like, oh, if I was like really old and my daughter passed away, I don't know if I could go on. And then it happened and I was like, wow, like that's actually a real thing.
You
Um,
know, I think
so
the only celebrity death that really just hit me very hard was Robin Williams.
so many people say that, and I agree. Like that's always the one I hear about too. And I think for him, this it was the kind of the opposite of Debbie Reynolds, where it's like it was so unpredictable. You know what I mean? Like nobody would have called that one. I think that's what hit people the most about that one.
Yeah, I've based a lot of my humor and the way I look at the world from Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
He had you only have one spark of madness. Don't waste it on, too much time. And that's a message that I think really um, has stayed with me for a very long time. Are there any like specific kind of quotes from performers that have hit you, stayed with you for a long time?
Let me think. Um, okay. It's not that deep of a quote, but what makes it stick is that I heard him say it in person. So you know Henry Winkler, who was the Fonz in Happy Days?
Hey,
Yeah. So I was very lucky and I got to see him perform in London with a bunch of theater students in my undergrad. And we got to see him at the stage door and he like spent a solid like I want to say at least 15 minutes in the cold talking to us just about life and like taking pictures of each of us and he kissed all the girls on our cheeks. And he took pictures with whoever wanted pictures. One of the students wanted him to send a video birthday message to his dad, and he did it. He was just so nice. And then as we were leaving, I forgot a student said, "Hey, do you have any advice for people who are interested in theater or like theater or just want to do it for their life or whatever?" And like it wasn't a quote about life, but it was if you do something, make sure it's something you're passionate about because at least if you fail, at least you can say, "Well, it was something I was passionate about." But if you do what other people want you to do, if you fail, you just look like an idiot because it wasn't even something you wanted to do.
that's
And
true.
I guess you can kind of broaden that out into life in general. Like if you live by other people's rules, you kind of like you're not the driver in your own car, if that makes any sense. Um,
Right.
and I think he made a joke about jump the shark because you know how that's a thing with Happy Days where Fonz jumps the shark and it was like a bad episode or whatever. And he implied that it was someone else's idea and he didn't want to do it, but he's like, oh, I'll do it just to make them happy. And then now people make fun of it and he feels embarrassed because it wasn't even something he wanted to do. So I think about that in general, like if you're gonna do something, do what you're passionate about and that doesn't mean you won't fail, like life won't be all roses, but at least you'll have that knowledge and that dignity of it was something that meant a lot to me. Whereas if you do what other people tell you to do and your heart's not in it, you really can't complain when you get to the end and you'll probably if you fail, you'll probably have multiple regrets rather than none.
Right. And as Mr. Winkler was walking away that day, somebody called out, "Mr. Winkler, I'm so sorry you got killed in Scream." And he turned and he was like, "Yeah, me too." Because remember, folks, that's a thing that happened in 1996. Look it up. Real. Oh my goodness. Well, I can see by the clock on the wall, the um, clock that's just to the non-existent clock that's just to the left of me, that we are rapidly running out of time. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview. But Tabitha, my last question to you is, if somebody were to approach you, much like maybe somebody approached Henry Winkler and said, hey, Tabitha, I'm looking to jump into the theater and performing world. I need a piece of advice on the best way to do it, on how to approach it. What would that piece of advice be that you would give them?
Oh my gosh, that's so scary. All right, give me a minute. You mean like professionally or just like in general?
in general.
Okay. Um, this happened to me recently. I was at a conference that had absolutely nothing to do with theater. And people just ask what you do, right? At all. Like they say, "What do you do?" So I always say theater teacher. And this happens so many times where I'll say theater teacher and people will say, "Oh my gosh, I did that in high school and I loved it." Right? And a lot of people, and I know that like a lot of people, you do things when you're younger, and when you're older, you kind of have to pick and choose what you have time for. But you always get those people that seem to regret it a little bit that they stopped. You know what I mean? So especially as a theater teacher, I am one of my soapboxes is okay, if you think that the only people that get to do this are the people that are ready to like move to LA and audition like crazy and get rejected like crazy and make it to Hollywood and eventually get an Oscar, that's really intimidating because a lot of people don't want that for their life or would just be too scared. So I love to remind people, no, like it's for everyone. And the best thing about community theater is that it has the word community in it, which means that it includes the lawyers and the doctors and the teachers and the mothers and the fathers. So don't forget that those opportunities are still out there for you, even if your life has taken you a different direction. And don't tell yourself that it's not something that's part of your life anymore just because you're an adult. Because I think I heard, I forgot, there was like a comedian and he was saying that he did theater and then someone in the audience said, "Me too, but then I grew up," and he made a joke about it. Like, what do you mean then I grew up? Like, just because you grew up doesn't mean you're done. So if you're
Mm.
interested in theater, just Google search community theater groups near me. Most of them will be just so happy to have you. And join Facebook groups like that, anything you can find where people can tell you about auditions and think about it. These people, like, we're crazy. Theater people wanted to do Zoom theater during the pandemic, so we're going to want to do things. So you'll find opportunities if you just look. So don't tell yourself that it's over and that it was something you used to do. Do the research and go audition for something, even if it's something small, and you might be surprised what happens.
I could not have said it better myself. I know I've read a lot of stories about people who started theater careers very late in their life. There was a woman who was in the producer's movie, the Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane one,
Mhm.
and the one, hold me, touch me. She started her career very late in life. So, yeah, it doesn't matter how old you are or who you are or where you are in life. It's definitely doable, like Tabitha said. Just go out and give it a shot, and you'll never know. And people, yeah, theater groups are happy to have as many people as possible. Well, that is about all the time that we have for today. Thank you very much, Tabitha.
Thank
As
you.
yes, as the outro music plays us out, I'm here to say thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you at the next episode. Have a good night, everybody.
I know, these are performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know.